Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the invitation. My conflict of interest, as our lab has received some financial support from various ventilator manufacturers. As you know, the action of breathing is initiated in the respiratory brainstem centers. Electrical activity generated is then transmitted to the muscle, inspiratory muscle, through respiratory motor neurons, and especially to the diaphragm, where muscle cell depolarization and contraction occur. As a consequence, air goes into the lungs during inspiration. To monitor respiratory drive, the optimal solution would be to record directly at the brainstem respiratory centers level. However, as you know, it is not possible in humans. As an alternative, we could record the signal, the electrical signal, at the respiratory motor neurons level. This is possible, but not easy at the bedside. What is easier is to record electrical diaphragmatic activity, which can be considered as a direct surrogate of the brainstem respiratory centers activity. Practically, as already shown, we currently use a nasogastric tube equipped with electrodes to record the raw electrical diaphragmatic activity. Then, with some signal processing, we have a nice signal, often called EADI. And with this signal, we can monitor the activity of the respiratory centers, and we can perform a synchronized and proportional ventilation called NAVA ventilation. If we come back to monitoring, EADI is well recognized as a useful tool to monitor qualitatively the respiratory drive. This is illustrated in this slide. In this slide, you can see what you usually have on your ventilator screens with a flow time curve and a pressure time curve. On the left part, it's easy to see that here we have 3 breaths from the patient, and we can imagine that we have additional breaths here in between. On the right image, we think, by looking at that we only have 1 patient breath. If now we had the electrical activity of the diaphragm monitoring, we can easily see that we have, in fact, 6 patients' breaths here, and here we don't have 1, as we could have thought only based on the flow and pressure curve, but we have 4. Interestingly here, when experts were asked to count the number of breaths by only looking at flow and pressure curve, no expert said that there was more than 1 patient breath. From that, we can say that EADI monitoring is a gold standard for patient ventilator asynchrony detection. Now, what about quantitative monitoring of the respiratory drive? This is a bit more complicated. First, because EADI amplitude is influenced by the distance between the crural diaphragm and the electrodes to record the activity. And this means that if we want to do inter-subject comparison, we should do a normalization procedure. This procedure can be performed using maximal inspiratory maneuver to perform a ratio between the recorded EADI and the maximal EADI generated, either asking the subject to take a deep inspiration up to total lung capacity or a sniff maneuver as previously presented. In intubated patients, as also already presented, this normalization can be performed using magnetic phrenic nerve stimulation. In this picture, we can conceptually see the interest of using EADI as a quantitative drive monitoring. Here, in a healthy subject, we can see that during maximal voluntary ventilation, the amplitude of electrical activity of the diaphragm is as expected, higher than during rest breathing. Same thing for the COPD patient. We also imagine here that in the COPD patient, we have higher baseline amplitude and higher amplitude during maximal voluntary ventilation compared to the healthy individual here. If we compare the values of EADI after normalization, we can see that in a group of COPD patients, the values were higher than in a group of healthy patients. A short word about physiology. The same group compared EADI amplitude after normalization between male and female. There was no difference. There was also no correlation between EMG, electrical diaphragmatic activity amplitude, and height, weight, or body mass index. Interestingly, there was a difference between young and less young patients. Then, quantitative dry monitoring seems interesting to monitor the respiratory drive, the neural inspiratory drive. But questions remain. First, it's not clear which EADI-derived parameters should be used. Second, there is a controversy as between the timing of peak EADI and end of neural inspiration. Is peak EADI the end of neural inspiration or not? The relationship between EADI and the parameters of standard respiratory monitoring, especially flow-based parameters, is not very well described. And the breath-by-breath correlation between EADI and piezo-derived parameters is also not very extensively described. To try to know more about EADI quantitative monitoring, we performed recordings in healthy volunteers during spontaneous breathing, baseline situation and with an added inspiro-expiratory resistance, and during assisted ventilation, also without and with resistance in the breathing circuit. And we recorded during pressure support with a low level of assist, pressure support with a high level of assist, and during NAV. From the flow, EADI, piezo, and pressure time curves recorded, we measured the parameters to describe each signal, tidal volume, maximal and mean flow from the flow time curve, maximal EADI, peak EADI, integral EADI, and EADI limited to neural inspiratory time from the EADI time curve, and pressure time product from the esophageal pressure time curve. 15 men were included in this study, and we can see here that when we added the resistance, we had a significant decrease in the Tifno ratio and in the forced expiratory volume. Now, the first question I asked, which parameter to quantify respiratory drive? You can see here that there is a good correlation if we put all conditions together, which means spontaneous breathing and assisted ventilation with and without resistance. We can see that the correlation between EADI integral as the global integral and peak EADI was good. The correlation between EADI integral, whole integral, and EADI integral limited to neural inspiratory time was also good. Oppositely, there was not a very good correlation between peak EADI and EADI slope. And this suggests that the slope and maybe more extensively the shape of EADI could be of interest to further explore the neural inspiratory drive, and this requires some additional analysis. Second question, is peak EADI the end of neural inspiration? This is a controversy in the literature. And if we look at our data, and if we look at spontaneous breathing data, we can see that the answer is probably not yes or no, but a bit more to discuss. Here we have the situation without added resistance, and we can see that the time difference between the end of flow, inspiratory flow, and the time of maximal EADI goes from minus 20 milliseconds, which means here that inspiratory flow ends before the occurrence of EADI peak, up to around 80 milliseconds, with here the end of inspiratory flow occurring 80 milliseconds later than the occurrence of EADI peak. Interestingly, when we added the resistance at the mouse, this time delay between inspiratory peak and end of inspiratory flow increased. Third question, is there a correlation between flow and tidal volume? As you can see in those two pictures, the answer is that the correlation is very poor between peak EADI and tidal volume and between peak EADI and maximal inspiratory flow. This strongly suggests that EADI monitoring, in addition to the standard monitoring we currently use in our intensive care units, can be useful to provide an additional information about how our patients are breathing. Fourth question, this is also illustrated here. This is the influence of adding the resistance during spontaneous breathing. We can see that adding a resistance decreases minute ventilation, doesn't change tidal volume, and decrease respiratory rate. And you see here that even if there is no change in tidal volume, EADI integral is modified, thus bringing an additional information. Here, same thing, but with the effect of assisted ventilation added. You have from left to right, spontaneous breathing without resistance, spontaneous breathing with resistance, assisted ventilation with resistance with a low level of pressure support, then a high level of pressure support, and then NAVA ventilation. And here you also see that there is no parallel evolution of minute ventilation or tidal volume and of EADI. The first question was the correlation between EADI and PTP ISO on a breath-by-breath basis. And you can see here that for different conditions, namely spontaneous breathing without resistance, spontaneous breathing with resistance, and pressure support ventilation, there was a relatively good relationship between PTP ISO, which represents the effort performed for breathing, and EADI integral. As a conclusion, I would say that EADI can be used to monitor respiratory drive in physiological and physiopathological situations. The interest of using EADI for qualitative monitoring of respiratory drive is well demonstrated. EADI is promising for quantitative monitoring of neural inspiratory drive to provide an additional information compared to what we have as standard monitoring, possibly to indirectly monitor breathing effort, but we always should be careful with inter-individual comparisons as this theoretically requires normalization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Liz, for this great talk. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. That was an excellent talk. So do you think there's anything that we should be using now clinically in this regard to help us with our patients? Any specific examples that you can give us? Or is it just too early?
No, I don't think it's too. I think it's a real opportunity to monitor the effort on a very easy-to-do basis. But of course, this requires formal validation in patients and a formal comparison between EADI and what can be derived from EADI and esophageal pressure and transdiaphragmatic pressure. But I really think that this can help applying better mechanical ventilation and especially avoiding over-assist during pressure support.
So you said that there is a huge inter-individual variation of the EDI. So how could we use EDI for a given individual? And is it that possible to tailor the use of EDI to standardize the normal EDI for a given patient? How could we do for one patient to target the normal EDI?
This is also a very, very good question and a real problem. What is clear is that in healthy volunteers, we recorded in this physiological study, there was huge differences in EADI, and comparing one patient with another without normalization is not possible. Now, is the normal value for a patient the same during a whole ICU stay? I don't know. And I think that it's a question that we have to address.
Great, thank you very much.